Hi, good morning, it's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. This is going to be a little bit different, this video, and I think it is important that you stick around at least to the end. Give yourselves, let's see if we can keep it below 30 minutes. We're going to cover quite a lot of stuff, but let's see if we can cut it down to 30 minutes. And, you know, if you're interested in me talking about this subject a little bit more, please feel free. So I'm having my breakfast this morning and just glancing through YouTube, I come across an advert before a video played. It immediately caught my attention. As you can see there, you can see the word Gene X is. I thought, obviously because my name's Gene, it's caught my attention. What's this video about? So I clicked onto the video and then I went onto the website and then discovered one of the first videos on this website, genexis.org, if you want to go over there and have a look yourself. One of the first videos is a guy from Oxford University who's a professor in physics discussing the matter about, you know, whether God is real or not, and he's talking about, you know, the fact that he's a scientist and generally science and religion doesn't cross over. And, you know, he's talking about his perspective on how he sees things from a physicist and how he explains that there must be, you know, 3 reasons or conclusions that you can come to whether or not this is an accident or it is meant or there is something else. And, you know, he goes on in an elegant way to discuss it. I'll be honest, I didn't watch all the video because I thought, you know what, I must add my little bit to this and share it with you guys. And I don't know whether you're aware that I have a project which has probably been going on now for a good 20 years, and it's involved a lot of research, gathering of certain materials and things such as that. Let me just grab that phone and I'll be straight back with you. So, quick apology for the interruption. That was my partner, and we was discussing our trip next year to Egypt, where I'm really fascinated to see something in the flesh or for real. I've just got to see that it is definitely there, and I think it will blow me away when I do, and I'll explain what that is a bit later on. But what have I been up to for the last probably 20 years? What is this research that I've been trying to figure out and, you know, get more evidence to support a theory on it? Is, in plain and simple terms, you know, the existence of God. Does he exist? And I know this is going to turn off a lot of people straight away, because the last thing they want in their life today, for a lot of people, is to even think about that question. But it was a question that 20 years ago was constantly on my mind, because I was thinking to myself, why is all this necessary? Why have we actually got the opportunity to experience life as a conscious being? And what is the purpose of it? Is there something else? And, you know, asking that question for a long enough period of time and then waking up one morning with the knowledge of an equation, which I might fit in this video and just briefly go through with you. But the idea is it's just to generally give you, you know, the basics of some of the research that I've been doing. And I've discussed it a few times, and I don't feel I've ever done it any justice, because to me, I think it answers that question whether or not God is real. And I know for a lot of people, faith is enough for them. Just to have faith in God is enough for them. But for me, I don't know whether it's my scientific background. You know, we like evidence. You know, when we do an experiment, it has to be repeatable, and the outcome of that experiment has to be the same, and we can say that that is a constant. You know, that's become a law, that if you put 2 chemicals together, you get this new chemical formed, and it's sustained, and, you know, after repeating that experiment many times, you know, you get the same outcome. So that, I suppose, for me, is what got me interested in answering this question. And, you know, you can put so many things down to just coincidence, but, you know, I think after a while you have to be a little bit more honest with yourself and say, look, this is not coincidence, this is actual synchronicity. And I think, going back 20 years when I first started putting some of these things together, I think the answer today, looking back on all that research I've done on this matter, is very simple, and it's a lot more obvious. The evidence is everywhere in front of us that there is something out there that has the ability to plan millions of years ahead, and it has laws which it abides by, and it follows specific patterns. And you've got to say to yourself that when you have enough evidence, then you've got to draw the conclusion as to that what you were supposed to be answering. Now, the reason why we're going to Egypt, me and my partner, next year, is to have a look at a specific temple, and it's mainly in ruins, just like a lot of the structures are in Egypt. But what I'm specifically interested in seeing is in Abydos, Egypt, old Egypt. There's a temple of Osiris, and on the pillows of this, at the back of the altar, I think it is engraved in the rock the flower of life pattern. Now, that is not the special thing about that pattern. What I'm more specifically interested is the border pattern around the flower of life. It consists of 144 triangles. Why is that important? Because if you've read Revelations in the book, you know that this is an important number. This number is actually mentioned more than once, and it is mentioned in a description of a few things. And like Isaac Newton, he spent many hours he believed there was something in that book that was encoded. And I believe that these numbers that keep reoccurring in there are by no mistake. I think that there is a clue there, and this is something that's been going on for 20 years in this research. So in Revelations, you're going to come across the 12 tribes of Judah, and these are the names of these tribes, are also the names of the angels that guard the gates of heaven. There's 3 on the east, 3 on the south, 3 on the west, and 3 in the north of these gates. And it breaks down to 12 gates, and each gate is the name of one of the tribes of Judah, and each gate also, each name is also the name of the guardian angel that guards the gate on that thingy. But so there is, obviously, if you've read the Bible, there is 144,000 people that make up the 12 tribes of Israel or Judah, and each gate group consists of 12,000 people. Now, 12 times 12 is 144,000, and these are also, I believe, the people that are chosen to serve God. It also is mentioned, the 144 is mentioned when it's describing what is described as the bride that descends from the heaven, and it talks about the foundations, and it talks about the wall length, and measured by the man that is of the angel, 144 cubits. So I think that there's a significant in the number that is mentioned more than once and describes 2 different things. I think that what they're trying to do is bring our attention to something. Now, getting back to why I want to go to Egypt and have a look at that pattern on the wall, is because there is 144 triangles on this flower of life pattern, and I believe it dates back probably over 6,000 years. And now these people that would have been in this temple would have been high priests, I believe, at the time. Maybe it could have been described as priests, or what we would probably call today scientists. But I believe that they was probably guarding some knowledge that may have at some point ended up in our religious text in a code, so that those people that was wise enough perhaps to stumble upon it would be able to probably figure it out. And I don't believe that I figured everything else out, and I probably wouldn't have got as far as I did if it wasn't just through the fact of fate. And what do I mean by that? One morning, after thinking, I'm getting really fed up with the life being so mundane. You get up in the morning, you go to work, you come home, you have a couple of hours with your family, and you eat, you get showered, and then it's like a rhythm. that just keeps, or a cycle that keeps going on and on and on, and it weren't enough for me. So I started asking the question, well, what is this all about? Why have we got an opportunity to experience this in a conscious manner, in a conscious, physical world, what we can understand? It's obviously not the same as animals, the level of our conscious, but I don't put the intelligence of animals down at all, but it's just that we are physically different to those, and we obviously have changed and modified our world, whereas the animals don't really. So there is a difference between, I believe, a conscious human being and a living animal. I'm not saying that the animal doesn't have conscious, I do believe that, but the point is, I woke up one morning and I knew what I had in my head had to be immediately written down. So I just jumped straight out of the bed in my boxer shorts, grabbed a pen, paper, wrote the equation down, and then just for the next few days, really pondered the importance of what I was actually looking at. And obviously, if you've watched my channel, you know that I describe this as the universal equation. If you have a name for your God, it's probably different to what I would describe as God. And this has become really popular over the last 20 years. I don't know what influence I've had in the popularity of the name, which I would probably call my God, which is the universal conscious. But let me just say this: if you had the name of your God and you pointed to a spot on the wall and said that's the name of your God, then I would point to the very, very same spot and say that is also my God. We just know him by different names. And if you go into the Bible, you'll see that Jehovah and Muhammad and all the others not Jehovah, but Muhammad, Abraham, knew God by different names. Even God, when he's talking in the Bible, describing something, he said, that Abraham knew me by a different name than what Noah did or Moses did. So I've got this equation and I'm trying to figure out, where all this fits in. What have I got actually in front of me? I've got an equation that doesn't really make any difference what numbers you put in there. You're only going to get two results out of it. And recently a friend gave it to his wife who works for NASA, and she took it in there and they was quite surprised with the equation. And I'll definitely share this with you because I know that some of you will really appreciate it. I do understand also that as we're talking here, there are probably people unsubscribing or moving away from the video because they've lost interest because of where it's going. But that's perfectly fine, because they was probably never meant to listen or hear these things in the first place, and it was fate that was going to happen. So I don't mind. This equation will only give two results. It will either give you a 0 or a number 9. I find it really interesting that it does that. And then over the years, of talking about this with other people, and some people have just said it's absolutely such a unique equation, and never come across anything such that could filter down just to two answers. And there's a lot about our universe that we can do that. I mean, I don't want to deviate from that, but I mean, we could describe everything in our universe as just two things if we wanted to. We want to categorize them. We can categorize them as a dielectric or a conductor. That's it. We have simplified the universe by just two things. There's obviously a lot more to our universe than things that just being conductors and non-conductors. We'll agree on that. But what this equation does is it doesn't only reduce things down to a 9 or a 0. It specifically in those numbers makes everything so important. I'm going to fast forward, and I don't want to lose you at this point. I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are really interested to see the equation, and I will show you if you want me to do that. We'll do a quick video tomorrow going through this. It's not very complex either. It's using a bit of numerology, and just adding up numbers and subtracting some simple numbers. But if you follow the pattern, it will always give you those two answers. So what is it then that you can link this equation to probably the existence of a supreme being or the prime creator? It's simply this: is that we've got to a point now where we can describe a cube shape or a sphere shape by simply numbers. And you can use any platonic any platonic shapes which make up anything, and we can give them a number to describe that pattern. So if we are at that level where we can do that with any platonic shape, so any object, then if we put that number into this equation, it reduces it down. I haven't worked out the full how the binary system, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a binary system, just two numbers. With digital binary, it's ones and zeros, but this is a little bit special. It uses the 9 and the 0, and I suppose there is a pattern that can be written out in 9s and 0s in the same manner that they could be with 1s and 0s, and that then means that you have a language. So if we look at anything out into our galaxy and beyond our galaxy, we can therefore apply a numerical value to whatever it is we're looking at, and we can put that numerical value into this equation and get that binary language back out of it. You see, for me, that is evidence that there is obviously something creating on a very intelligent level, because this is already the case. This is what has happened, and there are some significant things which I'll go through perhaps in another video with you guys if you want, that there is by no coincidence a very important number 9 is. And if you just for now, if you want to, go and write out the 9 times table up to 12 if you want, and just have a look what happens halfway through the 9 times table, because you're going to get to 45, and then you add another 9 onto 45, you get 54. So the 45 has just been reversed to 54. And when you see this equation, it's exactly what happens in the equation. It gets reversed. So you add the number, then you take the number away, and then I'll go through that if you're really interested in knowing about this. But all the numbers start to reverse themselves in the 9 times table after 9. And then, there's a lot of other things that you could obviously put down as a coincidence, or it's synchronicity. It's entirely, where you are and how satisfied you are with things, I suppose, around you, which just makes you make that decision as to what you want to believe in at that particular point. But, these numbers, like 144, if you add them up together, they make 9. The 9 times table is the unique numerical times table out of all of them that does this thing on its own. No other number in the times table will do that. We'll get to halfway point and then start to reverse the numbers. Like you'll get to 28, and then it'll be 82 reversed, or 36 and 63 reversed, or 54. You reverse that, you get 43. There isn't another number that we have that does that, but it's the important thing. You have heard this before, that mathematics is a universal language. That means if I've got a symbol that represents 5 and someone in China has a symbol that represents 5, we both can put these two together, because when we put the amounts out, if we've got 5 oranges each, yes, the symbols are different, but the actual amounts are the same. And that wouldn't be any different from anyone in this universe, wherever they are, if they come from an intelligent life or species or a different world, a different galaxy. Numerical values will be the same, and that's why it's said that the universal language is mathematics. So where do we make the next step then from, we've got this equation, we know that we can apply maths to all these shapes, and we can put these numbers that we apply to the shapes into this universal equation. It gives us a 1 or a 0 or 9. Why does that then mean it could even relate to something close to, a supreme being or the proof or existence of God? Well, it's simple. Is that there must be a pattern that's being used. And I don't think we're far from the fact that whatever pattern or mathematical system that's being used, when we look at the universal equation, I think that we are looking at the fact that this universe is not by any coincidence creating using that binary system, but the fact that it is following a logical pattern means that it's conscious. Think about that. And if there is a conscious, if there is an intelligent system that's being followed, it's obviously consciously choosing to use that system. So it is almost evident that, you know, that there is something very, very wonderfully, you know, at work, you know, in our universe. It is conscious, it is universal, and, you know, it is following a logical and intelligent pattern. And I think that that's probably the closest that we're probably ever going to get at this point to proving the existence of God. And I know that for a lot of people, you know, faith is enough, that's fine, but I had to go a little bit further to satisfy myself in some respects that there was something special at work out there. And I haven't got all of the answers, but I definitely have probably a good solid foundation, something that I'm really pleased about, that, you know, and I'm satisfied with. And I've explained this to a lot of people and showed them a lot of the research that I've actually did on this, and they are happy as well. Some people have even, you know, thanked me for sharing that information with them, and some people have just, you know, I have a couple that actually cried, which was, you know, just shows you the how much it actually meant to them to actually, you know, come into, you know, the knowledge of some of this information. And they said they'd never even thought about it. But, you know, I'm going to end it here, because I know that you've got, you know, your lives to get about with and go along with. If you do want me to talk about this more, you know, just mention it in the comment section. You know, we can dedicate one of the days in the week for, you know, and we'll just go through some of the research that I've got, because I've got quite a lot. And, you know, we can talk about some of the significant numbers that I find more than a coincidence in the Bible, and some of the other things around the world with regards to monuments. But I want to leave you with just this. You know, it's very easy just to take what we have for granted. I mean, we have our own biosphere, which is protected by a magnetosphere, which is protected by our sun's heliosphere as well. And I know that we're at a time where we're starting to see these things be affected. But it is by no coincidence that the position of this planet is at the right place. You know, a couple of thousand or thousands of miles away, it'd be frozen, all the water would, and therefore life would struggle to begin. It could be close to the sun, and therefore, you know, all the water on our planet would be gas. But the position of where it is exact where it's supposed to be. You know, I couldn't drop a handful of matches and it spell out your name or my name on the floor just by accident. And that's the sort of coincidence that we're trying to, you know, get our head around here. You know, it's at the exact same point. Now, there's no other planet within our solar system that has anything like ours in the terms and forms of life that we have on our planet. But I just want to mention one other thing, and just think about the possibilities of just this falling as it does. Not only have we got the right position for life to form and have liquid water on our surface, and have water to start with in abundance that we do have, we also have a moon which prevents the tides in the oceans from becoming stagnant. You know, it helps move the oceans around the world, you know, on its orbit around our sun, you know. But there's something more important than that. I think, you know, we really need to pay attention to it, and that is when we witness a lunar eclipse of the sun, and we watch this moon which appears the exact same size perfectly to cover the sun. And we know that that moon could fit across the diameter of the sun 400 times. It is 400 times smaller than the sun itself, yet it's only from the perspective of the surface of our Earth that when a human being is observing the lunar eclipse, that it is possible for us to see the moon eclipse the sun perfectly. If we was out in orbit close to the moon, we would see the moon appear much, much larger because of the perspective of the distance that you'd be to. to it. If we was further away, then it wouldn't eclipse the sun. It'd look small, you know, it'd be look like a little eyeball with a pupil in it, I suppose, if we was at the right distance away. But the fact that when we stand on the surface of this Earth and we witness a lunar eclipse, it is a perfect size. There is no coincidence there. There's no coincidence in the fact that our Earth is at the position it is so that water can be liquid on our surface. And then when you start to have a look at all the other mysteries, you know, you start to understand something. And that none of this was by any means a mistake. Guys, it's been a real delight and pleasure to talk briefly about, you know, something that's very passionate for me in my research in this matter. And you know, if you are interested in me going on a little bit more and just showing you some of the things that I've come across, then, you know, leave a message in the description. There's also a link there. You know, it'd be great if we could raise a few bucks for our observatory this month. I mean, we have been really falling behind every month this year. That is just becoming, you know, really difficult. So there's a link down there if you want to help support what we do. And I'll just say there's a lot worse things you can do than, you know, support an honest observatory that's just trying to, you know, inform people of, you know, some of the things that really are happening in our world, and, you know, try and nail it down to, you know, the facts and the truth, and using scientific methods by recording the data with equipment and not just speculating, because there's plenty of that on the YouTube. You know, there's a lot of people that regurgitate mainstream media nonsense, but it must be refreshing for you guys to know that somebody's gone out there, got the equipment, and started using, you know, some science in trying to gather those facts for you. So link down there if you want to help. And the only other thing to say, guys, is, you know, you take care of your loved ones. You know, give it a little bit of thought what we've discussed today, and if you want to hear a little bit more about it, please let me know. As always, bye for now.